Hello, hello, everyone. Happy end of September 2022. Last quarter of the Lovers year. Next year is the Chariots. It's different energy, but I think it comes from the same place, which is desire. So we're going to do the color reading as always. I was concentrating on my T, C. So we're going to do the color as always. We have the Tarot of Gemstones and Crystals. I believe we used this last time. We have Visions in the Liminal Space. And that's all for now. We'll see who comes out for the individuals. I will do, excuse me, shuffling. Now it is all together. Okay. So color reading for October 2022. Libra to Scorpio season. Our first true month of fall. Time change, I think. I actually have no idea when the time changed, to be honest with you guys. Like, I don't be tracking hours like that. All right. Oh, okay. Well, they all decided to come from the same place. And the key card. Okay. I think we're gonna be red. I haven't seen the cards, but like the way they're coming out of the deck, I'm just like, whoa. Okay. All right. Let's get into it. So, one last important. So, the concern. What is objectively going on? Yes, October-ish, right? It's like time's approximate. We have Onyx, Strength. We begin with the major arcana and a stone known for its darkness, its blackness. Also a synonym, not a synonym, a synonym for the night sky. And with strength, starting off with strength in the major arcana, there's manifold going on with this. On the one level, there's the socially conditioned, cis white heteropatriarchal knee-jerk response to like kill what we don't know and to assume that what is unknown is negative, right? Because even this, sorry to bring up such a dark topic, right? Sorry to bring up such a dark topic. This idea that in darkness, things are bad, right? Now, obviously, that can be wrapped into anti-Blackness and all them things, but specifically just the idea that the unknown is negative, as opposed to thinking, okay, in the unknown, there's more of myself that I haven't comprehended yet. And in fact, what illuminates it is the light. Like it's letting the unknown be known. And there's this assumption with strength that it's not even, actually, I would be really curious real quick to just look up the etymology of strength, because I think we think of it like the way that it's presented is as if strength is force or control, and those are different things, right? So let's just have a quick gander at the etymology of strength. Okay, it says Old English, bodily power, force, vigor, firmness, fortitude, manhood, violence, moral resistance. From Proto-Germanic, from Proto-Indo-European, tight, narrow. C, string. So strings, taut, stiff, tight, narrow. Okay. So strength in this context, I can see, has been attributed to sort of hardness and restrictiveness, confinement. There's the word that I was looking for. Hard edges. So with the concern, I think that we're going back, not back, but more into in October, a sense of defensiveness, hostility. This is just the general read, right? Like if it's present in your life, I just mean that societally we're going into the cold seasons. We're going into the darker seasons with less light, literally. And we're going into the holiday seasons, which are attributed to be often for many like the most negative time of the year, right? So we're going back into a sense of necessity, scarcity, survival. Like if the culture, like the things that are continuing to happen, right? Like these different little pockets of everything popping up around the world, and every culture everywhere, the same issues. Magnification of that. And in the magnification of that, which, is not unknown. I was going to do this video yesterday. I really went back and forth with myself about it. And I just decided to sit on it because like people who don't want to know history or who don't want to know their family or who don't want to know themselves. I was thinking about this. I'm like, men people, the construct of whiteness people, cishet people, right? They made the dictionaries. They made the history book. They made the religious texts. And they systemized the internet. And they don't even use these resources. Like they created them. But when you talk about the history that they constructed, or the words that they have used and what those words actually mean, or the faith they attribute to a particular ethical, moral standard, but then don't adhere to themselves, it's because they don't actually pay attention to the source, right? So the idea of strength right now will show up from the entire spectrum. Obviously, because we're a negatively polarized society, there's a lot of negative examples and exhibits of strength that we are noticing, right? And that includes how we respond to shows of force, bids for power, and really just any attempt to control. And I think that the way that applies on the individual level from the collective level is like there's a lot of permission to just do your worst. And when we talk about matching energy, I was reading a post about matching energy. It was a video actually. And that's like if someone withholds or like doesn't contribute energy and you're in relationship with them and you match their energy because you are the one scaling down, there's an obviousness to them that is reflected back to them about what they're doing themselves, even if they can't understand that behavior on an individual level. And this is true. And this is a gracious thing to do if you're doing it consciously, right? Because you're like, I am going to dim my light, my ethical standard, my desires to act as this person who is already acting a way I don't fucking prefer and think it's trash. But I am going to mash that trash to reflect back to them that it is trash. This is very generous of you. We all do it. We've learned to do this. But the negotiation there is that, like, if you're an 80% person in this iteration of your life and you're around a lot of 40% people, there's no crime in being a 40% person. And there is no like holiness about being an 80% person. The difference is just simply like, this is where you're actually at. So when you scale yourself down to match them in order for them to attribute, because you're already doing this and it's like a dog whistle, right? Like there's no comprehension, there's no recognition, there's no appreciation. So it's like when you go down here, you're taking the loss. because you are lessening what, like, you are acting like you don't know what you know. So back to the people who don't read their books or like any other things it's the denial, okay? It's the denial. So Onyx is your friend, okay? But strength, as in, it's more like this, because this definition is interesting, right? Like tight, narrow. These are not necessarily bad things. It's a description. Something can be tight, something can be narrow, right? This is not a negative description. But it's obviously a state of, for the general populace, right? Restriction. To have to attribute yourself to be strong, to be strong, to be strong, right? Like, why live in a world where you have to be strong? Why don't we all live in a world where we can be chill or relax or like neutral, those kinds of things. But if you are in goat times, you have to use goat measures, which is to say that if you are going to use or respond to any shows of strength, force, power, control, hierarchy, right, which we're all navigating every single day in more than one context, do it highly, 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 highly intentionally at this time. Like, in fact, even when I had my dafa recently, which is like a reading in Ifa, even my Baba was like, if people are like speaking wrongly about you, or if people are attributing things to you that have nothing to do with you, just say nothing. just say nothing. You don't need to respond, which I guess is why I was sitting on that video yesterday, because I don't want to describe it in a way where I'm reacting to people doing what is natural for them to do and what I know is natural for them to do. It's more about the fact that you know it is there. How do you address something so that you can actually use it to your benefit? It's simply about that. And that's strength, right? So it's like, if I'm going to have to tell someone off, if I'm going to have to, read someone's shit bare, if I'm going to have to cut someone off the teeth, let me do it as purposefully, as ethically, as neutrally, as responsibly as possible. Because people who do shit that causes suffering do that because they don't know otherwise. I was having a conversation with someone I'm consciously in coupling with right now, in the best of all terms, which is nice. It's like major growth. I have grown. I am expanding. It's wonderful. But how there are people, how like coping mechanisms are not sustainable, right? Because you're not always supposed to be coping. Like at some point, shit is just supposed to be. So obviously, when you see people using coping mechanisms, you're like, repression doesn't work. So like, let's at some point exhume this thing that you are not addressing and instead coping around. But there are people who internally are in a constant state of survival, emergency, right? And for them, there is no time, there is no space for anything but that, because they internally are in a constant state of duress. That can be obviously stimulated by external things, but they are co-signing internally what they don't prefer externally, outside of when those things are actually actively taking place, right? So there's no time for anything else, because there is no time or place where there is not duress. And that's someone who needs to be strong, okay? Strength is needed when it is needed. That is not at all times. That is not in all places. That is not in all faces, all right? So when you act 40% and you an 80, you are acting other than what you are. So just be very aware that when people are projecting and also attempting to exhibit power outside of themselves, let me just end it there. let me outside of themselves. Let me not even try and put flavor on that because we're all wrong at the moment that takes place. Okay. So just let's neutral. When you see that happening, mind your business, medicine. Very, very great medicine. Also, decide what it needs to mean for you. Don't try and make that be the meaning for other people. And on that note, let's move on to the opportunity. So, I can't see. 8 of Cups and Malachite. All right. I had a good conversation with the gender doula about the 8 of Cups, like last year in December. And he and I were talking about, there's certain cards in the tarot over time as a reader that you are just personally puzzled by, unclear about, never really connected to. There are other cards that come up all the time, and even if you're not connected to them, you have like a relationship with them. And then there's some cards that are just like out there for you. And for a while, for me, that was the 8 of Cups. And so we were talking about what that was for each of us. And something that he said that I really appreciated was 8 of Cups is when you have been carrying, for lack of a better word, I'm not even saying this verbatim, like when you've been carrying a burden as a way to honor, but also remember and recognize what has taken place, whether for humanity, for Earth, for a particular culture of people, for a particular family, for a particular community in time and space, right? Like you've been carrying this thing and you come to a recognition of, one, this thing that I carry is heavy. It's heavy because, one, other people, there are not that many other people to carry it, or if there are, we do not share in the burden of carrying this thing, but also because what I am allowing it to mean for myself is not sustainable, meaning that you're growing, you're changing, but the definition doesn't change. So you start to carry this thing that no longer is applicable to the life that you have, but you are remembering a version of yourself that, and essentially, in my opinion, you're just trying to honor in some way. But that at the 8 of Cups, you're like, I gotta put this shit down. And then you're looking at it after you've made that decision, and it's that basically heartbreaking moment when you decide you're gonna take that transition. And you're looking at it like, what will happen to that now? Right? Afraid that it will disappear, or you won't remember it in the same way, or it won't be honored at all because it was never recognized in the way that it was. And the interesting thing about 8 of Cups to me, though, because I appreciated that description and what that gave me. And before that, for me, I thought of it as the language that's coming to me right now is like being unnecessarily controlling. It's like when someone watches a movie with you and they want you to experience the movie the way they experienced it. So they start explaining the movie, but you haven't seen it yet. And but they want you to enjoy it, but they won't let you. It's like that. Okay. You know it is well intentioned, but also let me do this. I will do it, but let me do it. Right. So imagine the 8 of Cups like a mirror. That's also important, right? You're looking at yourself, but it's a different version of you. And you're negotiating your personality. You're like, well, if you leave this here, what's going to become of you? And the present version of you is like, I don't know, but I'd like to find out. And the past versions of you are like, I don't know. I won't be there for that. I can't, I wouldn't do it if I were you. And then the conversation there is, well, you're not me, right? So the Eight of Cups to me has never actually been so heavy and whatever. We know I'm a Pisces, okay? So maybe like transitioning is not something that makes me feel like I'm gonna die. But with the Eight of Cups and the opportunity obstacle, it's like you don't know what could happen. And that can be like darkness, the unknown. That can be as exciting, if not more exciting than what is known. But lamenting it because you don't believe that's possible, or if only because the interesting thing about the Eight of Cups is like you will remember that thing you put down, and you will remember it differently. You will be a different version of yourself. You'll have a different relationship to it. You may not create your identity around it as much, and so it will not create the same. It will not hold the same space in your life as it did before, even as you carry it. But it's really enough to just carry something and to remember it yourself. There are so many things that Earth remembers that not a motherfucker alive could tell. Okay, so the memory is important, and it will be honored, and it is honored, and it has a place. And you can carry a part of that place, and the past versions of you can carry bigger parts of that place, right? So I think of the Eight of Cups more or less as sort of a birth. And of course that's a death. But to me, the Eight of Cups, especially before you get to the Nine of Cups, because obviously by the Nine of Cups, it's like you kind of seen some shit. You like did something. And so with the Eight of Cups, it's like the present is right there. Like you're becoming. Let it happen. There's no holding back the like gravity. It is what it is, essentially, is the medicine there. And then of course that's about our emotional intelligence, our creativity, our how we can like of course, it's funny, in the past, they used to say, of course, cups rules liquids, water, liquids in the body, blood, urine, semen, vaginal secretion, right? Like womb water, all those things. And it rules the nuclear family procreative relationship, right? Because a child is I used to say a child is the most most autonomous creation that you can have, right? Because it's made of you, but it doesn't have to give a fuck about you. But at the same time, you, the individual, is also the most creative, the autonomous creation that you have, because there's like a authority of one internally within you, which doesn't mean that you don't have other people in there, but it's only because you co-sign those people and you're carrying them around. But meaning like internally, you are the only personality. And even if you were a conjoined twin and y'all had to do the same shit together, you wouldn't want to do it in the same way. You wouldn't always want to do it with each other, which means that like you are navigating this in front of you. So with the opportunity obstacle after strength, it's like allow what's happening to happen. It's not about going back anywhere. It's not about staying anywhere. It's about appreciating the rapidity of transformation, how that's constant metamorphosis, because if you're not going through it, someone else is going through it, which is changing the relationships of everybody that interacts with everybody else who's changing, right? So it's like the picture's moving now. And we're a generation of people who is going to have to be with that movement. Because if you're not, you will not survive it. You will resist it. You will also fight back against the tide. And if you go too far into that, you can fracture the consciousness, awareness, and be in a place of psychoses. So that's why I call it dynamic neutrality, right? I wish I had I do think. Yes. Because dynamic neutrality for me is like, this is neutral, right? And then this is feelings. There's all kinds, right? You go out here, you have a moment, but you come back. Every petal comes back to the neutral center. So dynamic neutrality is like allowing things to be what they are, not thinking that the the remedy is erasure, denial. These are the same family members. So it's not about making what is not. It's about letting shit be and also deciding for yourself what it is for you. And that's that intimacy of the cups. Because it's emotional. You gotta feel your way through this motherfucker. We are going into the signs of emotion who don't even be admitting sometimes, you know. Libras be like, I am neutral. You're like, you just okay. And then Scorpios know they have feelings, but they don't want you to know that they know. They don't want to admit it. And then it's a denial game. So, like, to be conscious of these things as we go in. And then last but not least, we have the advantage aversion card, which the hanged man, the hanged person, which is aquamarine. Ooh, Pisces stone, what? But the hanged person. So we're back to major arcana. We know that the advantage aversion is what about our character is helping or hindering the situation. And you know, it's actually so wonderful because the homie made me a like a 1 minute reader reel from various videos that I made. And one of the cards that I pull is the hanged person. And the thing that I say that she had cut up that I now say like more directly out of many videos is the hanged person just knows that there's nothing within existence that isn't a part of it, like including yourself. I even had a conversation with someone yesterday who they're like, you know, when you have suicidal ideation, it's about not wanting to exist. And I was like, you mean not wanting to exist as you know it? Because you don't know, motherfucker. It could be the same shit on the other side with different people, you know. But like, so as you know it, and to say that to yourself is also to appreciate that there are other ways of knowing it, and that existence is considered in other ways, which means that there are other ways of it, and that your experience in that moment or over a lifetime or in general is not wholly reflective of the potential of existence, right? So maybe for some people that's sort of scary, like the idea that they might not be able to get it and others can. But that's where that existential conversation has to come into, right? Because the other part of that suicidal ideation conversation is the nature of existence is to exist. That's what it does. That's all it can do. Exist, which means to do or to be, right? So all it can do is do be. So if you are a part of it, that it is that for you also. That's the one side. The other side, which is great, which is like things get to mean what things need to mean. First of all, things get to mean what they mean. Right. And then they have meaning for a reason. So when you say non-existence, you are literally talking about something that does not exist. So if something doesn't exist, but you do, it is the opposite nature of you, which means that you are always going to exist and it's always going to not exist. So even though that feels very paradoxical, when you actually allow the meaning to mean what it means, that's the point. You're supposed to understand from that the nature of existence is amorphous and mutable and never ending. And that whatever non-existence is, we don't know what the fuck it is, because even when we think about non-existence, we're using existence to think about. So we're always going to have a bastardized understanding of what that could be because we are not that. And that's okay. So hanged person, also an advantage aversion for me, is like that multidimensionality I was talking about. It's like very much letting your particular freak flag fly, understanding that your relationship with existence is unique, and that, again, it's enough that you remember, it's enough that you know. All this needing cosigns from outside of us to know what existence has been showing us personally in our life and our path that no one else can co-sign but us. And that once we actually co-sign, okay, I do have this experience. This is what is going on for me. I do prefer these things. These things do excite me. I do feel called to that. That all this waiting for permission from without, waiting for consent from without for you to do something that only you will have done is, it's like we don't treat existence like the lover that it is, right? We all have our little existences, right? Us, our little families, our little friends, our little communities, our little lovers. But like existence is like the big lover, okay? Like the big spoon. So existence is like, come out here, see some of my shit over here. Oh, look how fabulous Earth is over here. And if you would just like stand on this little rock and like see it from there, you'd understand why I was like romancing you to get you out here. But meanwhile, we're in our little constructed lives and we're like, no, I need all of this permission and this money to do this thing that I feel I want to do. And until everything else is ready, I won't be ready. And that's why I like to say location is a quality of a thing, right? Change the location and you change the thing, because that's the thing. We're like, these are Earth bodies, motherfucker. Like Earth loaned this to you. Okay. So you only have this one life to like be in Timbuktu or to be in Vietnam. And there's like a particular part of Earth that when you stand there has like a energetic response. It is interacting with you as you stand. Like that particular coordinate of Earth is the only place like that in that time ever in the world. And when you stand there, something happens, right? So like Earth is in a relationship with you too. Like give it some love. Like go have some time with that, and know that everyone has that same right to experience. That's why I'm like, I'm an Earthling. Like I did not grow up with any sense of nationalism, like at all. So, like there's not a nationalist bone in my body because everyone was born on Earth. So that makes us a citizenry of one. And also though, that the nature of relationships that are not human are as significant to your existential well-being as money in your bank account or someone who is in love with you or worldwide recognition on the job. That when you come to the end of your human line and you're going to hang your human body back up because it belongs to Earth, that you could say you did the experience of being here too, not just